Welcome to the WDW News Today podcast, episode 59. I'm Eric Morton, your host, and of course, Tom Corliss is here.
Let's just start ripping apart Epic Universe now. Let's do it. Oh, that's not the theme today. That's what people think.
If you mention Epic Universe, it attracts
here they come,
angry people. So when you say 500 nitpicky things about Disney and one criticism of Epic Universe, you will be branded a hater for all
beast.
Time.
They come with pitchforks.
Kill the beast.
He'll come in the night and tell you that your coaster is unthemed. He'll come.
That's not what we're talking about, Tom. But I mean, I feel I should catch up. I saw you last night, but you were seated
the opposite
I
side.
We had a large group spoken to you.
A large group at Territory Lounge to celebrate 300 episodes of News Tonight, which is coming up. We're recording this. Spoiler alert: this is not recorded when you hear it. This is being recorded the Tuesday. What's today's date? I don't even know. Is today the
24th?
No, today's the 25th. No.
25th, Tuesday the 25th.
Yeah, this is being recorded on Tuesday, February 25th.
It'll air in a week.
February 27th will be the 300 episode of News Tonight, which will be live on the WDW TV channel, which is also the home for our vlog content. I know all you guys aren't over there yet and subscribed. Go do it. But then, obviously, this will air on Tuesday. But yes, so the Tuzans were nice enough to arrange a group dinner / company drink outing at Territory Lounge, which is, by the way, the best bar at any Disney property in the world, and I stand behind that. Even better than the Haunted Mansion parlor.
Stop.
I mean, stop.
Better drinks.
Mike of Mike and Centaur made, I think, the best point and perfect. I still haven't done my second honest review of The Treasure because Billy's drowning in videos to edit. But the point I was going to make, and Mike nailed it. I never talked to Mike about it. What he said is exactly how I feel. The Haunted Mansion parlor is one of the best spaces Disney has ever created. As a bar experience, it kind of isn't great. The drinks aren't great. The servers feel like they don't want to be there. They're not at all in the theme. Like the seating setup is not conducive to a fun lounge experience, but as a space, it is spectacular.
I'll say this too. There are some really great themed bars that Disney has. It is the best themed bar. But the drinks, you're right. I don't love their drink menu. And in particular, I think some of the places that I really like to go don't have great service. And cruise line included, right? Cruise line, for whatever reason, there are a couple bars on cruise line that always have great service. And there are a couple where you're always like, oh boy, I better budget in an extra 10 minutes to wait for someone to recognize that I'm ready to go now and settle
or know
that
tab. If I'm rushing to trivia or bingo or something, I should know that this maybe isn't the place to go because I may not get the check for a while.
There are other places too. Like, look, I went to Scat Cats the other day. I love that place. Chronically understaffed.
Yeah.
Chronically understaffed that you will never leave there and think like, man, what I really got there was the best service Disney can offer.
Yeah.
I want to get back to Territory Lounge, but because you mentioned when we're recording, the Wigs are watching us record this live. So one perk you get as a Wigs member above the $7 a month level is you get to watch us do this live. They are joining us right now in the Discord, and they'll be arguing along with us as we go.
Yeah, if you get to interact live.
Yeah, if you want to learn more about that and get discounts on merchandise, early access to events, all these things, go to patreon.com/WDWNT or WDWNT.com/Patreon to learn more. We'd appreciate you considering becoming a member.
You mentioned merchandise, so I'm going to throw this plug in before we talk about Territory Lounge, which is not today's topic. We have 3 new button-up shirts coming.
They're so good.
Yes, they are in collaboration with Park Candy, so they will be the same wonderful, comfortable material. But there are 3 of them. There is Spaceship Sunset, which appears to be reminiscent of Spaceship Earth at sunset, which I love. We also have 50 Years of Space, which is celebrating the 50th anniversary of Space Mountain all around the world, with every single one of them represented on the shirt. And then last but not least, we are resorting to some cheap 3D tricks that is celebrating a certain attraction at Hollywood Studios that may be closing in June. You got a map down there? Anyway. Does anyone know the way out of this shirt?
Yeah.
So
the shirts look fantastic.
We have all three. The first time we've ever done this, there is a bundle where you save money. So if you order all three of them, you get $15 off. That is even without your Wigs discount, which then adds another 5% off the whole order. So save money if you order all three, and then save even more if you're a Wigs member. And, of course, all that goes to support everything we do here at WDWNT.
With those discounts, we're going out of business for each one we sell. So if you don't like us, there's no better way to help us go out of business than to buy these and get these deep discounts.
Wear them to Epic Universe.
But yeah,
in fairness, the Space Mountain shirt might look kind of cool in Celestial Park. It's got a space vibe that's very similar.
But Territory Lounge, I agree, is one of my favorite bars in terms of if you mix everything, which is the theming, which is on point there, the drinks and the way the drinks interact with that theme, the service, and the food there. I think Territory Lounge might be. It's certainly in the running for one of the top bars at any Disney resort.
That's still my favorite dining review I've ever done because it was just like banger after banger.
Yeah,
that was a really fun review. You could still go watch that on the channel if you want to. Nick, it's still the same menu. I think you missed that, but Nick and I were there.
The popcorn.
Yeah, I love it, and the music, man, the music in there with that giant map above you. Territory is great. Sadly, it's only open from 5 to 10 every day, so you have to, plan your visit accordingly. It's not one of those where, the park just closed, let's go to Territory, because Territory is either closed or about to be closed.
I was told you all were there until 11 last night.
Well, I think we sat. Yeah, but they won't serve you. Like last call's at like 9:40. Yeah. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if you order stuff at 9:40, no one's kicking you out the door right away.
I take Katie was. We were talking earlier. I was last to arrive and first to leave. I got it there at 7. And I left at 8. And now I feel bad that I didn't know you guys were staying till 11. But I had to feed my dog.
You missed the really cool. They surprised us with.
I saw the macarons.
Yeah, the macarons and chocolates. That's said. Nice. What did it say? Congratulations on 300 episodes.
Something like that. Someone posted a picture in Discord a minute
very
ago.
Cute. I did. It's very cute.
I was roasted in Discord by the Wigs and by Katie for using Discord in light mode. Looking at things the way that everything else in the world is presented to me when it's text. For some reason, it makes you old if it's Discord, but Discord only.
JRC99 said Teddy Roosevelt beats it by a hair in my book. So, interior-wise, Teddy Roosevelt at Disney Sea is unbeatable. That's just behind Haunted Mansion Parlor, like the two coolest spaces. But the problem with Teddy Roosevelt is the food and drink are not spectacular, right? Like it's not really a food place. They kind of just have like cold sandwiches, and they're those weird Tokyo Disney sandwiches where, as an American, you can't understand who came up with this combination and who would eat it. And it feels like a challenge from someone to be like, let's see if people will order anything. Which sometimes I do feel at Tokyo
the Italy
Disney.
Booth.
And then the funny thing was, for years, I think we just assumed they're like, yeah, I guess it's just cultural difference. This is what people eat here. And then you go with people who live there, and they're like, no, we don't eat this anywhere else, really. And you're like, oh, okay. So it is just them, like, them just ruining your life by making weird, bad food. Teddy's great. Standard drinks, they're always a little off from what you expect as an American. They're, if you order a classic bar cocktail, it's always a little different than you expect it to be. But interior, I don't care. If they served me, a glass of mud, I would still go sit at Teddy Roosevelt Lounge.
Yeah. Have you been to the Art of Marvel bar?
Oh yeah, I like.
What's
is
it
it
called?
Skyline? It's Skyline there too, isn't it?
Yeah,
or is it just? I think it's Skyline Bar. Skyline Bar sounds right. Mm-hmm. I think we have a video of it. Let's see.
Yeah.
Skyline
well, if
Bar.
So, Billy can put a link to that video.
Now that is a better menu. Those are better drinks than Teddy Roosevelt for sure. I like Skyline Bar. Obviously, there's also a Skyline bar on
Cruise line.
Cruise Line, which is fine. It's a little dated now, but it was cool at the time. I just hit Skyline bar and it sent me somewhere. Skyline bar Paris. Oh, see, that doesn't help because you got to put Disney Paris because there's a Skyline bar in the actual city. Yeah, it's Skyline bar. Yep.
Yeah.
With the Marvel characters popping in and out. Atmosphere-wise, it's not amazing. Like, it's fine atmosphere-wise. I do happen to like the music and the drinks at Skyline bar.
You mentioned some things coming up. It's very busy next about 10 days or so.
Next 10 years or
The
so?
next well, yeah, but it's one of those periods that it's been worse, right? But we have episode 300. We're putting a lot into that for News Tonight.
3 hours.
And then immediately when we're done, we're flying.
And when you say immediately, I think actually, right? So
Yeah.
maybe News Tonight will end, let's be conservative and say 12:30.
Yeah.
News Tonight. We then have a post show, which it takes Katie 15 minutes to start. So that we won't be done until 1:15 in the morning with that, at least.
And our flight,
I'm already seated. I never even leave the stage, so don't start. 1:15 we'll be done with that. And then the flight is at
Wait, are you
6
recording the
a.m.?
news too?
Am I? I guess I am, but I think we're doing it before the show. I think we're doing it earlier in the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then our flight departs at 6 a.m.
It means we have to be at the airport at least by 4:45.
Yeah, be at the airport 4:45. Go to DCA Food and Wine, which will start sometime around 10 or 11 a.m.
Our check-in
West
is at
Coast
11.
Yeah. We're there for one night. So Saturday, we will finish up anything we don't get done on Friday.
Yeah.
And then we fly back to Orlando on less than 48 hours, right?
Yep.
Then we have a party that requires some planning too, that you and I are both
Some
attending.
outfit planning at least.
Then blessedly, a couple days later, we have the opening of Flower and Garden Festival.
That's Wednesday.
Wednesday, which we've had it the next. Remember, didn't we? We did that where we turned around the same day, but I think was that
News Tonight. It was a Thursday.
No, where we went to California and we took the red eye and went straight to a
landed
festival.
and went straight to Epcot. Absolutely.
Oh, that was not DCA Food and Wine. It was the San Francisco food, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't a festival. Yeah.
In any case, we have done that too.
Was that when we were there for bears to pick up all the bear stuff? I think it was.
Bears?
Remember the country bears stuff? We had to go to California to
Oh,
get.
yeah.
Because then it would have been August, which would have been food and wine that year, right?
Yeah.
Or even July. I forget which one.
It
one of
involved
the two.
pickle milkshakes. Which one has pickle milkshakes? Is that Food and Wine or is that Flower and Garden?
The pickle milkshake is food and wine.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I think it was when I bought an entire person's country bear collection, which include thousands of items, which if you come to the museum, they're on display. A lot of it's on display in there. And so we dealt with that. And then I think we spent a day or two at the parks, maybe even just a day. And then flew back, and it was the morning of. Yeah, we went straight
we were
to
doing
Epcot,
the San Francisco food.
and we were in. I think we got to the Odyssey at 11:10 a.m., like a few minutes after they had opened.
Yeah, our flight landed at like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Then we were at the Odyssey at 11.
Booked it to Epcot.
It was. I'm pretty sure it was the San Francisco food that we ate because
I
we had
think
been
you're
doing
right.
food reviews in California
Yeah.
and came back. And,
It was phase one of San Francisco. Like they weren't open yet. It was just the menus at like 3 of the restaurants changed. So I remember, and it was all good at least because that was we were like the first people to have the infamous birria tacos, which now are a thing. But we did, it was Lucky Fortune, Cocina Cucamonga, and I think Rita's.
Aunt Cass Cafe? Or
No,
Rita's?
Aunt Cass
It
was later. Rita's, I think, flipped over.
Yeah.
Rita's had some slightly new concoction. Or maybe the Cerveceria.
I'm excited to get out there, though. I mean, I am trying to get my money's worth on this Magic Key. Got to go every now and then to keep it going.
We would have stayed longer. It wasn't just the birthday party. Honestly, it was the cost of the trip was good. The flight. We
astronomical.
could not find flights at reasonable prices because the only 6 a.m. flight to L.A. out of Orlando is Delta, which I love. Delta is my airline of choice. They're the only ones that offer. I think 7:30 is the next earliest flight from anyone. And so there was no option there. And then trying to find something either Saturday night, Sunday morning, or Monday was a nightmare. Everything was about the same price unless you flew Frontier or Spirit. And Eric was adamant that we could not fly Frontier or Spirit.
No, I was adamant of not flying Frontier. I fly Spirit on the reg. As long as I can get the big front seat.
Definitely better than Spirit.
No.
Yes.
Their fleet is
like
ages
this.
newer. They have like the newest fleet out there. Spirit is not that bad. Dealing with Spirit, if you have to check a bag and all that stuff, can be a nightmare. But if you buy the big front seat that includes a carry-on and a personal item and a check bag if you need it, and free drinks and food, and that big, it's not that bad.
At that point, it was almost the same price as Delta, though, once you added all of that.
Yeah, well, it's nonstop, and on the way back, we're not nonstop. So
we're not nonstop, but it's a quick stop in Atlanta, and then we're here.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us for Travel Time with Eric and Tom.
I mean, it's a whole company about travel. Yeah. To go to Disney, most people have to travel.
I have so many projects going on at home that I'm going to miss out on. I can't wait to miss them.
What are you missing out on?
There's been a lot of painting going on.
Oh my God. I feel like you guys are in a constant. You're like Epcot. Your home is in a constant state of becoming.
Right. Well, we had to paint that like hallway where the guest room is, so that we could properly mount my Haunted Mansion parlor portraits and stuff like that. That's done. One of the toilet room is done, and now we go into the big master bath type of situation that is overwhelming to me, and it's a big stylistic choice. So we'll see how that works out.
Okay, no spoilers.
No, just from like neutral builder. You know, what the builder put on their neutral colors to like like dark green, like, and all new fixtures and lights and mirrors and so on.
Lee loves that stuff.
She's good at it. We've clashed because this guy on TikTok is like a design guy, and he's very adamant. Kind of comes across arrogant, where he's like. He basically says that when you're doing a room that you should paint the walls, the trim, and the ceiling all the same color. And he said, this is not a trend. This is design 101. And if your designer's not doing this, they don't know what they're doing.
I hate people like that who are like an expert in a singular field and they talk down to everyone like they know better than them. I hate that.
But Lee refuses to paint the trim and ceiling, so we're just going to have green walls in our bathroom. It's very exciting.
That was a joke, by the way. I also don't think I talk down to people. I think I give my I cite my sources. I tell you where, through official channels that information was disseminated, what Imagineer or executive or whoever believed in said thing, and why that's what Disney should continue to do. I don't just tell you like I'm right because I feel I'm right. No, it's because it's something that someone who makes those decisions said at some point, and those are the rules, But anyway, that's why when we have an event, the Imagineer or former Imagineers get upset. There was a moment at Promising Tomorrows where I think so much of their careers was spent with making attractions fit in wherever they were going that now they get, I think Paul used the term mixed, the parks are a mixtape now. And it's frustrating because they spent so much time and energy to make things fit a time and a place. And now it's like, who cares? Like, all right, whatever. So, yeah, I totally get that. I don't know. You spend your whole life doing something, and then the next group is like, it doesn't matter.
Gotta promote your movies, though. Gotta put your IP where you...
There's nothing wrong with, like, movies. Movie attractions have their place.
Yeah.
Do they need to be everything? No, but you also don't need to sacrifice the theme of a place to include an IP, right? Like, I understand Guardians at Epcot. I get it. Like, you wanted to make a bold statement of where the park is going. But at the same time, it's like maybe a fake pavilion in a park full of real pavilions is kind of a silly idea.
There's things that are like kind of, look, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, you can there are obvious ways to tie it to Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
But at a resort where there's an entire land in a theme park dedicated to Toy Story, I don't like that. No. Breaking continuity feels weird to me.
Yeah.
Promoting movie. Look, Walt did that. Well, what Sleeping Beauty Castle was how many years before Sleeping Beauty came out? 4 years before Sleeping Beauty, and then they put an attraction in the castle 2 years before Sleeping. You want to talk about a build up?
Yeah.
They were promoting Sleeping Beauty 4 years before it came out.
I had no problem with that. I love that.
Yeah.
I think as a kid that was cool. Like, I remember going on Buzz Lightyear and Zurg, and then you go to the movie and you're like, oh, that's the guy from the ride. Or It's Tough to Be a Bug. Like, I remember seeing that, and then like, yeah, though, that's a movie that's coming out. Like, imagine, I know those of you who are younger, it'll blow your mind, but imagine sitting in It's Tough to Be a Bug. That movie hasn't even come out yet. You have no idea who those characters are. You have no idea. They were just theme park characters. And then the movie came out, and you're like, oh, that's the ant from the show. And that's Kevin Spacey as a grasshopper. Can we still say that name? I have no idea.
This is not to be confused with attractions that just ended up becoming movies, right? Where Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion and Jungle Cruise. I'm sure there are.
Dinosaur's the greatest example, right? Because you talked about Sleeping Beauty, the walkthrough opening 2 years before the movie. Dinosaur, as Countdown to Extinction opened 2 full years before that movie came out. And they already had those characters in it. Now, albeit they're not completely as they are in the film, but it is those characters. That's the Carnotaur, and Aladar's in there. Like, they're legitimately in there. Those are all the characters, the dinosaurs, the raptor, the Styracosaurus. Those are all the ones from the movie. And they're 2 years before that movie came out.
There are attractions that a lot of these are older. Not all of them are older, though, but that just tell the story of the movie, right? So on the new side, you have like Frozen, right? Frozen and Tangled, these things at Fantasy Springs, basically they're telling the story.
Book report.
Right, a book report. And then there are others that use something as a backdrop. So Avatar Flight of Passage, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, Frozen Ever After. A lot of these things that are using the characters and familiar themes, but are creating a new story.
Someone brought up Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. That was taking the characters in the movie and a new. People forget about Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. This is controversial now because people are suddenly nostalgic for this. I hated Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. I thought it was terrible. But people now are like, oh, that was cool. They should bring that back. I'm like, really?
I don't think it was impressive visually. I understand like some of the little other effects that they put in the seating areas and stuff.
The mice running.
The mice and all that. But the actual visuals of that I felt were a little, I don't know.
I think it's very of its time, right? 90s. It's like of the age of Terminator, right? And I think those live action 3D shows are always a little weird.
Yeah.
Back then, I think in general, I think 3D movies have always worked better with animation or things that are bright and vibrant and colorful. Yeah. When you have like a kind of dark, fake laboratory with live actors that are superimposed with very early. Technology. It was.
I think it works better with Muppet Vision 3D because they're Muppets.
Yeah.
Maybe not because they're. Yeah. And now the technology lets them create with projectors things that are hyper realistic, right? That look. Look, I know you're not a fan of Escape from Gringotts, but like some of the scenery in there when you go through the queue and all this stuff. It looks very real.
Oh, the sets are fantastic.
The blending of sets and
my favorite part of that ride is when you go under like the fake track with the mist coming down. Yeah. And like, I think that's gorgeous. If the whole ride had been that, I would love Gringotts. My problem is you go into a big projection room and there's very clearly like a hole in the wall, and then a kook arm crazy spins the piece of wall out of the way. And then you're like, oh, that's where we're going. We're going to go through the hole.
There's a scene in the queue, though, where you walk past sort of an office/living, like an area with a couch and a desk and all these things, and it looks very real.
In Gringotts?
Yeah, in Gringotts.
There's a living room?
I think it's somebody's office, or I don't know exactly what it is.
Like an open. The pre-show.
Yeah, it's in a pre-show.
It's in a queue. Yeah, where the film is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the queue is gorgeous. The
hyper realistic.
The doors, the vault doors in the queue. Yeah. I mean, the detail is unreal. Which I think someone said those are the ones from the movie. Are they actually the ones from the movie? I forget. I know there's a minecart actually from the movie, but they put it out in the extended queue because they could end up figuring out how to get it into the building where it was supposed to go. For those that don't know, there's a big spiral staircase And supposedly it was supposed to go at the bottom of that of that spiral staircase, and it either didn't fit or they decided to run the queue different, and so they ended up just putting the big minecart out in the extended queue, which I don't think gets used anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's a big unthemed outdoor extended queue under an awning somewhere at Gringotts where that is.
Because I do love when you first walk in the queue all the way through the pre-show.
The load area is pretty too.
The bankers, they look super realistic. I think, I know you hate that ride.
They did a nice job with.
I think you're a big guy. Like you have big feet. Like that ride, like you got to fit in that ride vehicle comfortably.
I'm not
it's difficult.
uncomfortable in it.
I don't know.
I just don't think it's great. I just don't think it's a particularly great ride. I don't think coming off of Forbidden Journey, which was such a revelation for everyone, I think Gringotts was a disappointment. I don't think it had any of the impact that Forbidden Journey had, and maybe nothing could, because your first time out with a Harry Potter land, I mean, people the whole world over waited, 10 or more years of their life to go physically to that place. So maybe at that point, anything after that's, just never going to impact people the same way.
I know you don't agree. I love Universal, and I think they can do no wrong, and I think that all their attractions are the best in the world. And I'm sad to see the end of Fast and Furious Supercharged.
Good on I applaud them for them to sit there like so few years into the existence of that thing in Hollywood and go, you know what? We got this. We have a great franchise. We're building this roller coaster. Get rid of this stupid piece of garbage. Close it. Like Fast and Furious is one of our biggest IPs that we personally own. One of the few IPs we personally own that we choose to put in the parks at this point. Like, let's do it right. And like, they know how to do roller coasters, and they got a really fun coaster idea and a hell of a backdrop for it. And that's the right way to go, and close the thing that people don't like.
It's probably one of the top 5 or 10 movie franchises of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, you got to.
And it's begging for a ride. Yeah. It's a movie about rides. It's a movie where you get in a vehicle and go fast. So like how. Obviously, we know how they arrived on the tram tour with it, because you're in a tram vehicle. That's not going to change. You can't get out and get into another vehicle. I understand. I got it. And at the time, like it's fine. It's silly and stupid, but it was fine. Where the big mistake was made when they're like, what if we take that and put it in its own building in Florida? That was the mistake.
Yeah.
That was a tremendous mistake. And anyone people worked on it threatened to quit every day. People were so unhappy on that project and knew it was junk. They knew it. And they're like, well, this is what we were asked to do. And then Comcast executives famously came to the opening and they wrote it. And there's someone we know, and the executive turns to them and goes, do people like this? And he just goes, really? The executive goes,
no.
Kind of the understanding that
people.
this is kind of we kind of built a bad ride. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well,
Oh, well.
They can't all be hits, I guess.
Look, speaking of they can't all be hits, I think what we wanted to talk about today fits nicely in here, which is we're kind of wanting to create our own idea of what they should be doing with some of these lands and things like that at Disney World.
Well, I think we want to unpack what's coming and talk about whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision in our opinions.
Correct.
And then what we think maybe should have happened.
Where to start, Tom?
I think let's start with Animal Kingdom. That's slightly less interesting than Magic Kingdom, I think, currently. Do you want to talk about what they're putting? You want me
Sure.
To
so today we saw the final destruction of Triceratops Spin.
Oh, classic.
Obviously, I don't think it's probably many people's favorite ride.
I don't think
just
it's
a
anybody's
flat spinner,
ride.
Whatever, a carnival ride, if you will. Dinoland, Dinorama, all this stuff. Dinoland is changing forever, and for me, the theme never really was intriguing. I like the backstory of like Chester and Hester's and all that stuff. I like the backstory, but it's a backstory that was created due to budgetary constraints, and the land has always looked like a budgeted, land.
A testament to tremendous storytellers that they took a budget that barely existed and turned it into chicken salad, right?
Right.
They put together a story, which is the thing most people were in love with, not necessarily the aesthetic. Like, look at all the people that showed up at the closing of Dino-Rama. Like they showed up for the closing. Like essentially, it's as if people showed up to the closing of original Paradise Pier at California Adventure, which was a dump. And Dino-Rama was also a dump. I'm sorry, folks. Look, you can certainly have good memories there and nostalgia for a place you spent time in your childhood and beyond. Totally understand that. That's why I was there. But, you know, we weren't celebrating something of quality going away.
No, look, a very little fanfare. They destroyed Primeval Whirl a couple years back.
Yeah.
Now, Triceratops Spin. Look, they're probably the two of the worst rides that you will ever wait in line for, and I don't think anyone's going to miss them. And I think what they're coming up with is kind of cool. I think all this Encanto stuff is going to be neat. The Tropical America, like I don't really have an opinion on the Indiana Jones thing. You know, again, like I say, redecorating a ride.
Yeah. But it's something more people know and understand. I'm on board with Indy. I like how it all fits together. I like that you made another land in that park that is a area of the world, which is kind of not that Pandora is, but you have Africa, you have Asia, you're following that theme and building another land that essentially follows the direction of Animal Kingdom, which Pandora kind of didn't. But I also think Pandora fits wonderfully, but that's a whole different argument. I like that. I kind of still wish they had done the original plan. I think the Zootopia Moana thing was the better route, but that's me.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Encanto e-ticket attraction is going to be cool, and I think it's what they need to boost Animal Kingdom a little bit. I think Animal Kingdom. I know a lot of people who say Animal Kingdom is their favorite park. Look, because it's different every time you go, right? Your experience with the animals and your interactions are memorable and all these things. But from your actual rides and attractions standpoint, you have Flight of Passage and then Expedition Everest that a lot of people like. But other than that,
Safari.
It's kind of, the Safari.
There's not a lot.
There's just not a lot. And so I feel like that whole area was sort of wasted, right? Because nobody, they're not dropping a rope and people are sprinting to go on Primeval Whirl or Triceratops Spin.
I mean, people definitely went on it. It got a line, and that's just because there was more to do in your day, right? You didn't want to. You're like, well, we didn't do everything yet. Should we go over there? Oh, a roller coaster. Let's not to blow everyone's mind, but there was a 4-year period where that was the only roller coaster in that park.
Yep.
So in an age before Everest, people went on Primeval Whirl because they're like, oh, a roller coaster.
There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, I mean, especially then, man, before 2006, I hated Animal Kingdom. Like, really strongly disliked it for a long time. And then I started to turn a little when Tarzan Rocks opened. And then more so, I liked the Jam and Jungle Parade a lot. So I'd go see those things, and we'd go see the animals. And then we'd leave and spend our night at Downtown Disney, because that's what you used to do. It was like, oh, that's our day we'll be at Animal Kingdom till 3:30, and then we're going to Downtown Disney for the night.
Yeah, Animal Kingdom has its charms, and I think that this will boost attendance or interest.
For sure.
I like the idea of this carousel. I don't know too much about, what else they're trying to do. The casita and all this stuff is going to be kind of a surprise to me, I think.
Big e-ticket ride.
Yeah, it's an e-ticket ride.
Reskinned dinosaur, a carousel, which will be super charming. And then a lot of I don't know. I mean, I suppose there will be animal exhibits. It'll be interesting to see what the animal exhibits are, or if they just, wheel our crocodile friend back in.
What is our e-ticket attraction going to be like? Do you have any idea?
What, the Encanto?
Yeah,
I don't know. People are back and forth if it's a boat ride or if it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know at this point. I haven't heard a lot about it. I don't know that I've pried a lot either, because it's not. Sadly, it's just not the thing I'm excited about.
Well, this is an opportunity, I feel like I mentioned a few episodes ago, to I like when they let the Imagineers cook.
Yeah.
Give them a blank slate. Hey, Encanto, go.
Like you said earlier, it's not a retelling of the movie. It's
right.
when Antonio got his powers, which he talks to animals. Right. And that's how you make it fit in the park. So that'll be interesting. It's an original story, which seems to be the Disney way is original stories. The OLC feels differently. OLC likes the tried and true formula, which is the book report.
Yeah.
That's what they did a lot of in Fantasy Springs for the most part. I mean, there's a slight difference in Peter Pan. It's not the movie, but it almost is. Yeah, I mean, they are like, our guests like this, we stick to this, this is it. And then the U.S. parks, it's become more of we're going to tell a slightly different story with these characters from, a different time in the movie or a different point in their lives or after the movie or something like that.
I think there was a temptation when you talk about hey, Zootopia or Moana going in there. For a Moana, I think there's probably an appetite in the audience for a Moana e-ticket
Absolutely
attraction. And I'm naturally inclined to think they might go in a direction of like Pirates in Shanghai, where you have the boat that can be spun around and do a bunch of stuff and have a mixture of practical and digital effects.
Which
I think can you imagine going in Moana's like canoe or outrigger?
It needs to happen. I think the fear is what we've heard for a while is Adventureland at Magic Kingdom, which if you know Adventureland at Magic Kingdom, there's room out back. But, is it smart to send people all the way back there? That was what happened when they were going to do the Atlantis ride. Fire Mountain, which there is a whole video about here on the channel if you search for Fire Mountain Atlantis. We show all the concept art and everything. It was essentially a narrow path by the side of Pirates of the Caribbean that you went down, and then out back there was a mountain, and you rode on a roller coaster through it. And so certainly you could build something big back there. But like Ratatouille, is it smart to have these dead end back, these attractions tucked all the way in a back corner where egress is kind of hard? I don't think so. And then, I mean, the other side of it is you've built a whole Moana area at Epcot, but does anyone really want to see them knock down the Seas Pavilion and replace it with a ride? Probably not.
Yeah.
That would piss off a lot of people. Would the average guest like that more? Probably.
I think you're right about the dead end thing. I mean, somehow the dead end doesn't seem to be as big a problem, although it's going to be changed for Big Thunder. It's never felt that bad to me compared to, I feel like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, I forget it exists. Like it's back behind there. But when I walk around Epcot, I have a loop in my mind. I'm like, oh man, I forgot to go back into
why?
New France.
Yeah, because when you leave, if you go Adventureland or Frontierland, literally there's that path straight ahead, which takes you to Tiana and Big Thunder, right? And if you're coming from the other way, you see these two giant mountains in the distance, and you're like, oh, we gotta go back there. As opposed to Remy, which is you go across the promenade, you don't even see the path that goes to it.
Yeah,
it's when there's a festival, there's a booth blocking your view. Number one. And number two, you'd have to take this very tight side path up the waterfront and then find, way up basically behind a store, there's an arch that tells you like Ratatouille's back there. It's not intuitive. It was a weird choice. It was a really weird choice, especially given that you're building in a plot on the other side of that pavilion anyway.
Yeah.
Like that show building is on the left, the expansion pad to the left of the France Pavilion, but to access it, you go all the way to the right. So they could have just had it face the promenade. They could have done that, but I guess I'm sure there was a conversation of, oh, well, we want to build more restrooms, and we want to have the France restaurant people want to open another restaurant, and so it's like, well, how do we do that? If we go this way, we can do that.
Look, there's something to be said for certain design elements that you see at a place like Epcot where you can kind of wander a little bit and get kind of lost in it. I just feel like that one, like Morocco, I love that pavilion where you just kind of keep like winding your way back there until you're all the way back.
But it's your choice to explore that, right? Yeah. You're not looking for like an attraction that's part of the reason you came that day.
Right.
I
get it. I don't know. It's very interesting to me that the way that you have to balance these decisions, and I think we're going to see this big time when we get to. Are we ready to talk about Rivers of America? And
we can go over to Magic, but I just want to say, in hindsight, again, like I was excited for Moana and Zootopia because I think Moana is begging for a big e-ticket. Not that Encanto isn't, but I think Moana was begging for a big e-ticket. It's a movie all about human relationship with the ocean. Makes sense to me. And I know Joe Rohde doesn't believe in Zootopia at Animal Kingdom, which is happening anyway, which I think is a way worse way, being the show in the Tree of Life. It makes even less sense. But like Zootopia the park is inspired by Walt Disney's fascination with animals. Walt Disney's fascination with animals inspired an entire library of anthropomorphized animal characters, right? Like, that's the company's legacy with animals, is they were inspired by real animals to make cartoons of animals, and it's the reason we're all here. And so having a small section of the park that celebrates our fascination, the human fascination and need to humanize animals, I think worked fine. I think it made plenty of sense, but they decided instead it made more sense to have them tell you about biomes in the Tree of Life, which will be Walt Disney World. If I had a nickel for every Walt Disney World attraction about biomes, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's kind of crazy that there's 2 of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think the mission of Animal Kingdom is sort of their North Star, but it's a windy way to get there. Sometimes you got to go to Pandora. Sometimes something doesn't work or connect because you still have to make something commercially viable for people to want to go.
Yeah.
So I understand trying to leverage some of these IPs to increase attendance and curiosity about the place. While I understand that the mission of Animal Kingdom, especially in the mind of Joe Rohde, is kind of a serious thing, right? It's like a central thing to you can usually tell something designed by Joe Rohde because they tend to be very mimic nature, right? You know what I mean?
I was going to say preachy, but
yeah, but I'm just talking about design elements. I mean, we take these things very far. So things that criticisms I have of Animal Kingdom are actually masterfully done. They're just not the way that I've been to Africa, right? I spent a lot of time in Liberia and some of these other places. And the picture that they want to paint of Africa is more of like underdeveloped third world villages and places with rusty power lines connecting on buildings and cracked sidewalks. Look, that is real. That is part of Africa. But I want to, I mean, we've talked about this before, I want to see a fantastical version of something.
Yeah.
When I go to a theme park, I like to, Fantasyland, I don't want to go there and imagine they don't have indoor plumbing and people don't bathe regularly, right?
But like Main Street, right? Main Street is based on Marceline, right?
Right.
The Disneyland one in particular.
Yeah.
Based on Marceline. It doesn't actually look like that. Like it's an aggrandized version of what his childhood home looked like. It's which is the Disney way, right? The Disney way is to celebrate the real place, but to make it, for lack of a better term, to Disneyfy it and make it more fantastical and whimsical. And Animal Kingdom doesn't make it. I think artistically, which I understand, I think they're like, well, the whimsy and the magic comes from the animals themselves. Yeah. And I think it hurts the environments because as far as Africa and Asia in that park, I have no connection whatsoever. I walk in there and I'm like, it's slightly like it's white guilt. Here we are, white guilt land.
No, I just think
white guilt.
I don't even think that. I think the authenticity is impressive to have accomplished, but I'm not sure that I need authentic versions of Marceline, Missouri, which I've been to and you've been to, or some of these other places. I would rather have the fantastical version. I'd rather have the place that I can get immersed in where I am and have an appreciation for where it is in the real world, and also understand that this is kind of a curated version of it that is maybe going to create memories for you that will make you more inspired to go visit a place.
Now it works. I think it works really well in the walkthroughs. So I think Gorilla Falls and Maharaja, I wouldn't change a thing. I think in the lands proper, it could use a little something to make it a little more visually interesting or a little more whimsical and fun and inviting than either of those lands are, because I don't think Africa or Asia really draw you in. I don't think you look down that thoroughfare and go, I've got to explore deeper. Like that baobab tree is not like the most enticing icon or weenie in a land. I don't think Animal Kingdom as a whole nailed the weenie thing. I think like the Tree of Life draws you in, but none of the other lands had a thing that's like it's you see it from when you are first entering the land, and it draws you in further and further, and it really does. And Everest to an extent, but Everest you see over bridges that go other places.
Yeah.
It's not even necessarily on the way to where you're going. And I get the exploration thing, but at the same time, that park faced some budgetary battles, and the way they danced around that was greenery. And so there's a lot of greenery in those transition spaces and nothing to really draw you further to where you're going.
I think some of the authenticity notes work in a place like Universal Studios Florida, where it's actually designed to be like a set, right? So you're in this kind of grubby back out Sting Alley or whatever, but that's like that works because you could picture them filming movies there.
But it's still a fantastical version.
Yeah.
Though. It's still like the movie version. It's different when you're dealing with movie versus, real life place, I think.
Yeah.
Like New York Street at Hollywood Studios was never New York as it existed. It was always a very clean and, it was a cartoony kind of whimsical version of New York City and as a movie set.
There are parts of Universal Studios Florida where you're like, this look like I would love to go downstairs to this bar that's below street level.
Oh, I mean, the New York section's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Other than, the Transformers building, which ruined it. But
I used to think that one street was Chicago, and it was only because they had a Blues Brothers show there. I think we talked about that before.
I get it.
I was like, I don't know, is this somewhere in Chicago? No, it's all New York. Oh, okay. That makes no sense. So do we, I guess, back to Rivers of America.
Let's go to Magic Kingdom. So
a fantastical version of the Rivers of America.
Yeah. So to tell the whole story here, obviously there's the famous D23 event where they talked about blue sky stuff, which was also when they talked about Moana and Zootopia, which
and
eventually
villains,
changed. Yeah. And then what they showed for Magic Kingdom was beyond Big Thunder, beyond the Rivers of America, beyond the train, 3 new areas, which were Coco, Encanto, and Villains. So Encanto slides over to Animal Kingdom in the next plan. Coco just goes away. I don't know if that's the ride. Yeah, I don't know if that's the ride they were going to build at Magic Kingdom or not, but DCA is getting a Coco attraction. Where and when remains to be seen, but a Coco attraction nonetheless. And the one thing that was indelible and held on was something that in the late 1990s, any Disney fan, on the internet could have told you was in the works, was a Villains Land at Magic Kingdom, which everyone freaked out at that moment. It's like, oh my God, they're going to do it. Same with the Monsters Inc. coaster. Both of those go way back. And so to finally see those in a presentation, they're like, we're going to finally do these. You're like, yeah. And then you find out what's going to be lost for them. And you're like, no. It sounded great when you don't talk about what you're replacing. But in the case of Villains Land, it's kind of not replacing anything. But the big change was suddenly hey, we're not doing Coco and we're not doing Encanto and we're not even building Beyond the Train on this side. You know what we're going to do? We're going to put Cars in Frontierland. And people were way more pissed off than I could have ever imagined.
So I remember watching, you were at D23. I was just watching the stream and being like, oh, cool, Cars. That looks awesome. Because one of my favorite attractions has to be Radiator Springs Racers, and you immediately think of that, right?
Yeah.
And you see it, and then I'm like, wait a minute. That's not good if it's going where I think it's going. And look, this goes way back to, not way back, but 2020, 2021. This is when there was a lot of talk about Splash Mountain and Tiana and all that stuff. And what I really believed, and what I kind of believe now is, leaving aside the debate about Splash Mountain, was why don't we do something for Tiana that can really enhance the park? And I thought Tom Sawyer Island is kind of not getting a lot of action. It's kind of, what if they made that sort of a New Orleans area, all of Tom Sawyer Island, including a Tiana's Palace restaurant, or, and meet and greets, and something that is, look, Disney's no stranger to building places like New Orleans. And you could easily build a bayou in this island that's surrounded by the rivers of America. And you might have to put a bridge in there or something, and
The riverboat would have to go away no matter what.
well, either that or
park
the
it and turn
riverboat
it
becomes
into a
like a
prop.
walk-through attraction, or you could walk across the river via the riverboat. I don't know how that would work. You could do a bridge like they do at Epcot, right, where they just have the bridge come up when they need to go through, but that would have to go through too often.
Or you build a kiosk that sells beignets like Cafe Du Monde, where it's a little kiosk and there's not a lot of seating near it, but next door is the dock, and there's a boat, which is now stationary, that has a bunch of tables and chairs on it.
Yeah.
And people could sit on the boat and eat their beignets.
So my idea initially then was, why don't we just do that? Why don't we turn Tom Sawyer Island into New Orleans, a New Orleans square, so to speak? And I think in many ways it would be, there's so much opportunity there. Yeah, there's a lot of work that would have to be done, right? There's a lot of infrastructure that you need to bring out there that's not there now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff you got to tear down. But I think you could do it and still maintain some of the wooded areas and not destroy the river. And then Splash Mountain, you can have a different conversation. If you want to change it, retheme it, whatever, that's fine. You could do that. You can have that debate about it. But to one-to-one just go Splash Mountain bad, Tiana good, switch it in, switch it out, and not do anything in the center felt lazy to me at the time. And now the Cars thing is the opposite. The Cars thing is too ambitious, right? Where we're going to get rid of this whole thing that you like to put a Cars attraction there. And I just feel like you could have maintained the river, you could have maintained the island, and had a restaurant and a New Orleans square, so to speak, and I think people would have been happy, and it would have given you a blank slate to do something with Splash Mountain if you so chose.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's me second guessing them. I just feel like by the way, if you're going to put a Cars attraction at Magic Kingdom, there seems to be a real likely place that no one would be too upset about you tearing out.
Yeah.
Which is the Speedway. You know?
Is there enough room there?
I don't know.
Here's my plan is not gonna. No management, no executive is gonna approve the plan I have. There's no way. What I would have done, I would have bulldozed Big Thunder Mountain. I would have removed Big Thunder Mountain and put Cars out at the edge in the back. And that way the Cadillac range out in the back distance of the park is like the thing that draws you back there. And you can go, like, that transition in DCA is wonderful. That back arch, the car arch that's like the hood of the car.
Oh, yeah.
And that takes you to Villains Land. That would be fantastic. That's great. And it still fits where it is. And here's what I would have done is I would have done what Tokyo's doing is I would have taken like one of the most recognizable, beloved e-tickets and given it a spin for the 2020s. So you take your bulldoze Space Mountain and build a new Space Mountain, bulldoze Big Thunder, and build a new one that has modern technology, right? You have things like drop tracks, and there's the tracks that like tilt down and all of this stuff. Now, it's a runaway mine train, like the track collapsing and like the track like not being finished and like leaning and all of that would work really well. Like you could do all of that now. So make like a modern new Big Thunder and push it in more towards the shoreline. So it's actually like up against, you have that Frontier Street with Country Bears and the Shooting Arcade and all that. And we're still getting rid of Tom Sawyer Island. Tom Sawyer Island's still
you're getting
gone,
rid of Tom
but I'm
Sawyer.
replacing Tom Sawyer Island with Big Thunder Mountain. And we could do a bit of Paris, or you leave the river.
Make it an island like Paris.
Leave the river, and either it goes under, and if you don't want to spend that money, even if it goes on a bridge over the water onto the other side of the island where the mountain is, that's fine. Like that would all work. It's still Frontierland, but you're pushing Frontierland. You're shrinking Frontierland, pushing it in, but it still has all the things people love about Frontierland. And then you can travel beyond the West. You can travel to New Orleans in that corner, which I think it's inevitable, but I'd get rid of Pecos Bills. I would replace Pecos Bills with a New Orleans restaurant in a heartbeat. Pecos has never been known for its food. As far as fast food, Disney's never been able to truly nail it with the Tex-Mex thing, or even.
I think our last review there was fairly positive.
Bad. There was some fun stuff, but I think all in all, I think people would be happy with New Orleans fast food. At Port Orleans, you nail it. Like the jambalaya and everything. I think it'd be something different for people. I think people would really like it. If you want to build a new non-Pecos Bill Frontierland restaurant, not saying we didn't need to give the shooting arcade to Disney Vacation Club. I would have turned that into a counter service is what I would have done.
Did they give it to them or did they sell it to them?
They sold it to them. That's what happened. It was
what's
money.
going on there.
It's operating money that they're going to give them on a regular basis. I think that would have been neat. Or find another place for a counter service in that area, or bring back the Diamond Horseshoe as actually a Frontierland establishment and not a forgotten half of Liberty Tree Tavern.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, one of those things. And that way, you're shrinking Frontierland, but give some of the Frontierland border back to Frontierland. Do something new with the shooting gallery space and do something new with the Diamond Horseshoe. Hell, even if you had the Diamond Horseshoe as the counter service and you're like, we have additional seating across the way and it's the gutted shooting gallery, that'd work too. And it's right, and the Big Thunder Mountain entrance is right across the way. That way, if people don't ride Big Thunder, they have a place to hang out. I think it would have worked really well. And you could have built a new mile-long bar, per se, in the other space. So you have full counter service at Diamond Horseshoe, and then across the way at the new place is a bar in the back, but also if you want to bring your food over from Horseshoe, you can.
I think look, I don't hate your ideas. They're not practical because
How is it less practical than what they're doing?
Leveling Big Thunder Mountain and then moving it and leveling Space Mountain and
build a
rebuilding
new
it
one.
and building a new e-ticket Cars Land and attraction back there, I think would be so disruptive. It will be more disruptive than what we're going to see with.
How? Big Thunder's already down for a year. They had to retrack it. They had to retrack it anyway.
But you're going to be down. You're going to be Tomorrowland is going to be down an e-ticket.
No, I'm not saying
Frontierland's going to be
Space
down
Mountain.
an
I'm saying comparing to Tokyo where they're doing it.
Oh.
I'm not saying knock down. That maybe no. I
thought that came out as you were saying also to level
our
Space
Mountain is untouchable. It's the original. It has to be left.
I thought I misunderstood.
It
where you
has
were
to be
coming
left alone. It's the original. That is not the original Big Thunder. It's not the original. You can do what Tokyo's doing. You can knock down Big Thunder and build a modern version of a classic Disney e-ticket. I think that's allowable. It's not the original. It's not the best version. And it fits your plans better. I think more people are happy with it. It's ambitious and interesting. And on top of having a whole new e-ticket area with cars, you also have a brand new e-ticket in Big Thunder. And you're doing what you're supposed to do, which is these things are supposed to evolve over time. These things are not supposed to be I think in the case of a Big Thunder or Space Mountain, I think time eventually catches up to them a bit, and it's charming that they exist, but I think you could tell the same story with modern technology, and it's time to, I always loved Big Thunder, and then I went to Hong Kong and I rode the Big Grizzly Mountain Runaway Mine cars. And I just was like, this is so cool. I love this. This is so much better than Big Thunder. And it's still so Disney. It has animatronics. It has an original story. This is modern Big Thunder. And if they could still do this, then I feel comfortable in them knocking down Big Thunder and doing a modern version of it that is so true to the golden age of Imagineering, which is the 1960s into the 70s.
Since we're knocking down Big Thunder Mountain, can we just build Western River?
See, that's the other thing I would have done. My pitch for it never would have happened. My pitch for Splash was to turn it into a smaller version of Western River. Tell the story of Western River along those lines, but at the same time, I understand the material is probably you put yourself in the same hole again with the offensive material if you include the Native Americans, which was, as the story goes, and as you can see in concept art, Mark Davis, when he first drew up the ride, there were some characters of Native Americans that weren't particularly polite. And then as you see as the 70s go on and he's still trying to get this thing built, there are slightly modified versions of the concept art where they're not so much stereotypes and they're a little more realistic because he really wanted to make that project happen. But even in the 70s, same with Splash, where they kind of knew when they built in the 80s, they're like, this might kind of a problem, but I guess not. And Western River was the same thing, where they realized while they were working on it, they're like, maybe some of this is a little outdated.
I mean, I understand some of these things are outdated. Mark Davis had a particular talent for storytelling through images that he created, and it's kind of incredible that where he ended up and what he ended up being able to do, because he was. I mean, we talked about Sleeping Beauty Castle. He was animating Sleeping Beauty when Disneyland opened, right? He didn't get involved with Imagineering probably till the end of the 50s. So till after Sleep, he animated Maleficent and Aurora. So he was a feature film animator.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they go, oh, by the way, this guy can tell crazy good stories, for attractions.
Walt had that ability to look at those guys in animation and say, I need them to come over to the park. And he looked at Mark and he's like, Mark, come over here. And Mark, look at the Jungle Cruise. Mark, you have a good sense of humor. Look at the Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
And Mark, the first time out, essentially turned the Jungle Cruise into what you know it as today. The Jungle Cruise that existed in 1955 is not the attraction you're experiencing. It was very serious. It had no comedy. And Mark changed it. And the Jungle Cruise now and forever is a comedy attraction, because Mark came in and said, this place could use a couple laughs.
I don't know precisely when he joined WED. It had to be very late 50s after Sleeping Beauty came out, or early 60s.
It was early 60s.
A lot of people think of him as original and a first-generation Imagineer. He was a little late, though. He wasn't there for the opening of Disneyland.
He was one of the 9 old men.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's see what year he went to WED. I have this book. It's a fantastic
My guess would be
book,
59 or 60, but I'm not that old, so I don't remember. I wasn't
this
around.
Doesn't actually say. It just says like, he went to WED. He worked on the Jungle Cruise, and it says 1955, which he
did not work on it.
He did not work on the.
He was working on Sleeping Beauty, which I think production of that went on for almost a decade.
Yeah.
By the way, I watched it recently. It's very weird. The backgrounds and the textures they use for a lot of that stuff in Sleeping Beauty are bizarre.
Ivan Earl.
Yeah, Ivan Earl stuff.
Oh my God. 62 he went to WED.
62. Okay. That makes sense. We could use some more next generation of Mark Davis, though. Somebody that can tell a story with a snapshot.
Yeah.
And that person is more than welcome to come work on the new project. Villain's Land. I mean, I don't think anybody's upset about Villain's Land.
No, what I just laid out for you, I'm still getting Villain's Land. I think the whole world's in agreement that Villain's Land is where it's at. And I know people are like, it's because they're doing Dark Universe. Dark Universe is not a Villain's Land. It's a monster land. It's a land where the universal monsters all exist, where like that's not the inspiration for Villain's Land. Is, we need a land that's dark. That idea, they drew that up in the 1990s because it was a hot IP. So taking your hot IP that happens to be dark and brooding and deciding that's one of the 4 lands for your park because you have no IPs left to use at this point. Let's not sugarcoat it. Universal doesn't have a lot of property that's usable. And if they do, they are so stingy with it because they want you to go to their other parks that they wouldn't dare put them all in one place. So they could have put Zelda and Pokemon in Epic Universe. They certainly could have. But again, from a business standpoint, what they've decided is, we'll build those later at the other parks. So that way, if you like Nintendo, you have to give us 3 tickets worth of money.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, nobody's innocent in that game. Right, people want you to go to their parks, and they put attractions in parks to make sure that there's a reason they put these attractions.
But Disney owns Star
parks.
Wars. They don't. You can't go see Star Wars at all 4 parks. Right, Star Wars has a park. Yeah. Even at Disneyland, it has a park. You don't have to buy a park hopper if you like Star Wars, and that's all you want to see. You could just go to Disneyland. You can just go to Hollywood Studios.
Do you think then? I don't know what just caused me to think this. Like Star Wars. Like Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. Do you think Villain's Land will have a spot where you can watch an alternate version of the fireworks, like we did at Galaxy's Edge, where you have the star? What's it called?
Especially if it's going to be back there.
What's it
Fire
called?
the Rising Moons.
Yeah.
We still got to put out that review of we did the nighttime gathering.
Oh yeah,
got to put that out.
Spoiler alert:
Billy can't breathe though.
Wasn't perfect.
Either way. Where was it? Oh, with villains. I mean, it's always a great idea. And if they're digging through what are some of the older things we have that haven't, that could be used for expansion, then I think the villains idea was brilliant. It had to happen. I've seen some people say, like, there's people that went, you can't put Villains Land at Magic Kingdom. The Magic Kingdom is a place where dreams come true. The Magic Kingdom over its lifetime has had 1 million different offerings.
Snow White's Scary Adventures?
But no, there's specifically 1 million different offerings they've had that are about, like, the Magic Kingdom, like, coming under attack.
I'm just
from
thinking
the
scary
villains.
stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, also was scary stuff, but like the whole, like, almost every castle stage show has been Maleficent trying to take over the Magic Kingdom at some point. Their fireworks show, there's been a bunch of them that's some of the premise. And so the villains, this whole wonderful backstory of the villains, for some reason, being conjured to one place if they're going to try to take the Magic Kingdom or whatever the story may be. It's really very cool. It's a really cool thing. People are going to love it. It's going to change Disney parks forever because I can almost guarantee you it's going to end up at almost all of them.
How many villains
eventually.
do you think? How many villains will be featured, do you think?
I think it'll have inspiration from every one of them to date, at least in the Disney animation catalog.
Every single one?
I think at least a reference to them.
Yeah.
How many do I think will be featured in a ride? That I couldn't tell you. But I think that second attraction that's not the roller coaster probably has a ton of them. I think it's going to be a big, like, I think it's going to be a bit of the boat ride, which again is another thing in the late 90s they talked about at Magic Kingdom. The Bald Mountain ride where it was like the villains competing for, what were they competing for? To be the best villain or whatever it is, which is a little bit of what the stage show is at studios, except it's the who's been treated the least fairly. But then also I think is similar to Villains Tonight, which was on the cruise line. I know you don't like that, but I think story-wise not too dissimilar from that too. But no, I mean, it's a genius idea. It's absolutely brilliant. It's going to draw a ton of people. It's a huge deal. The villains thing, no one has a problem with the Villains Land, also because it's not replacing anything. So that's the other reason.
I have a free idea for Disney.
Oh, boy.
We're going to steal something from Disneyland that I really love and put it in Villains Land.
Yeah.
Shere Khan's Bengal barbecue. What do you think?
I don't think it's happening.
Come on.
Disney World would find a way to screw up Bengal barbecue. The food and beverage team would undoubtedly find a way to make that inedible. They would find a way. Meat skewers. If it's at Magic Kingdom, they'd find a way.
We never knew that plastic skewers wouldn't work for this.
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy.
I lament the loss of Coco. I thought it was a really cool thing that you walk past Big Thunder. You leave Texas and you enter, you leave the American South and you walk over the border into Mexico. I thought that was a cool idea.
Why could we not, and I know there would be backlash for this, why could we not re-overlay, reskin Mexico?
Don't you dare.
From the Three Caballeros. Only one of them is Mexican.
Because for some reason, unlike Muppet Vision and unlike the Rivers of America, the one thing Disney thinks they can't touch is Grand Fiesta Tour. That's the one where they're like, well, the fans really like that one. We can't touch that. But meanwhile, they looked at Muppet Vision and went, yeah, okay.
But Coco is much more celebratory of like Mexican heritage and culture than the Three Caballeros.
I don't disagree, but you ain't touching my Caballeros. How dare you? I don't disagree, but you ain't touching them.
Let's do it.
Nope.
No.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Give Coco its own ride. I think that boat ride at DCA is going to be fantastic.
We don't have anywhere to put that.
Not in Epcot.
All of our spaces at Disney.
But maybe eventually they'll decide the original land they wanted for Coco and Encanto, they'll spend the money on. I knew they were going to get cold feet. That land back there is going to cost
maybe that could be
so much money to rehabilitate to the point you can build on it.
Maybe that could be the Tomorrowland Speedway. Coco fits into Tomorrowland so well. It doesn't matter anymore. Like you said, it's like mixtapes.
It does matter, though. I don't think Cars – people are like, Cars doesn't belong. Americans no longer care about cowboy stories or the American West. it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's a genre that is dead and buried. And maybe someday, like Pirates, but like Pirates only brought back the swashbuckler genre for so long. It wasn't permanent. You had a 10 or 15 year period where, and even so, like no other pirate movie succeeded in that period. Like the world wasn't set ablaze. It wasn't like superheroes where like, oh, everyone's got to make a superhero movie now. Everyone didn't start making pirate movies. So I just think the American, look, in Paris, the French and the Europeans have always had an affinity with the American West. So that Frontierland makes a load of sense. I think in Japan, and that region, they clearly connect with it. They like it. That store that sells generic Western wear always has people buying stuff in it. So, it's supported in those places. And at Disneyland, it's the reason that park even got built, essentially. It was the main focus when it opened. And so it's untouchable there. But beyond that, I don't think it was timeless in the U.S. I think it didn't connect with people. People didn't want to ride the riverboat at Magic Kingdom. People didn't want to go to Tom Sawyer Island. Big Thunder only works because it's a roller coaster. I don't think people are necessarily in love with the theme of it.
I think the aesthetic is really great for that park. I think it looks great.
It is. I don't disagree, but I understand from a guest satisfaction standpoint that you have a land that is probably rating the worst of all of them with guests. You have to understand, we have a different audience. The Walt Disney World audience is so different from all the other ones. It's all tourists who know the least amount about the place they've come to visit. It's not like the other places where these big local audiences or even people that come back who love it, who come back time and time again from far away. We exist, right? The perennial Disney World guest exists, but we are outnumbered, to quote Hopper, 10 million to 1. Not that much,
if
but
one
you get
man
the idea.
stands.
Oh my God! Remember Hopper?
Remember Hopper?
That's a deep cut. That story now. This is from 5 years ago already. But I just don't think the American West works. So it's like, well, how do you celebrate the American frontier or the Western, heading west in the United States? What speaks to today's audience? And the answer is like, well, okay, so for a modern audience, I think there's more of a fascination with road trips and exploring and seeing the natural beauty of our country more so than cowboys and Indians and all of that. And I think that's the direction they chose. They're like, people will resonate with, heading to the Pacific Northwest for its beauty. And in the midst of that, you have a really cool racing ride with Cars characters. And that's how we celebrate the Western United States. I applaud the fact that it's still Frontierland, right? It's still a celebration of the United States, a portion of the country. Because they could have certainly I guarantee you they sat there at some point. I promise you, when that conversation started, someone sat there and went, what if we got rid of Frontierland and made it something else? I promise you that conversation was had. And I bet you anything, when Bruce Vaughan came back, and someone in that regime was like, maybe there's a way to still leave it as the frontier, but to make it relevant to the crowd that comes to our parks today. That's my theory. Now, again, I don't have a strong attachment to Frontierland at the Magic Kingdom. That has never been my favorite land other than the Country Bears. It's never been and Splash. I love Splash. But other than that, I have no affinity for nearly anything in that land. Like the river's beautiful, but
I will even say that if you're just talking about the American frontier, you're going to slap me when I say this. The Country Bears are not unique to the American West.
They in fact are mostly from Florida.
From like Georgia and Tennessee and
Tampa.
The Smoky Mountains and Florida, right? So I realized like that kind of log cabin architecture that's associated with this lodge, which was, we could probably do a whole episode on Mineral King and things in the future.
It was lifted. They couldn't get anything original greenlit.
Yeah.
Mark and everyone was frustrated. And so they're like, well, this is already developed. Can we do the Country Bear show? And it's like the one thing Roy let them have was that in Hall of Presidents.
Yeah. And it's worth pointing out that the Tomorrowland Speedway in no way reflects any sort of futuristic vision.
It would not even then.
So
not even when it
Coco
opened.
going there is no more or less offensive than what's there now.
It was themed to a raceway.
Yeah.
What about a 1970s raceway spoke for the world of the future? No, nor did a bunch of buckets on wires going overhead either.
Yeah, but I mean that was transportation. That was kinetic energy to.
I'm not knocking the existence of kinetic energy, but if the theme of your land is the world on the move and as it will exist in the future, should the Skyway have been built in 1971? It was built because they looked at in
the future there will be Skyways at Disney World.
It's fair, but at Disney, they just looked at what they had at Disneyland and were like, okay, we'll replicate almost all of this.
Yeah.
How do we work all of this? We need to build all the things that people expect. People expect the Skyway. People expect a race car attraction. Even then, like they knew Autopia wasn't a representation of the future, so they're like, well, then we're making this race themed. It's the Grand Prix Raceway then. And that was a concession. I'm sure I bet no one actually wanted to build it. I guarantee you no one sat there and was like, yeah, we want to do that raceway again. We want to do the Autopia again.
I'm just saying, it's a lot of valuable real estate there.
It is. I think you bulldoze that and you sort of split it. I think you give some of the plot to Fantasyland.
Yeah.
Like the side that faces Tea Party, you give Alice some representation. And then the side that faces Tomorrowland, you put another small attraction. And you sort of split the difference there. You cut it on an angle and you give some to Fantasyland and you give some to
Or maybe another DVC lounge.
Nope. Maybe not.
All right. Do we dare head over to Hollywood Studios to discuss this?
Oh, do you want to talk about
calamity?
that?
Do we have time?
That. We could. I don't know.
What do the wigs think?
Let's talk about Muppets and Monsters. Now, obviously, the easy thing with Monsters, Inc. replacing Muppet Vision is it's big city architecture, and so all you kind of have to do is slap those accents, those Monstropolis accents, if you will,
right,
onto the buildings, right? And so the other side of it is that park was designed really poorly. I'm sure Bob Weiss and everyone we had at Stage 89 will tell you that park layout is not what anyone envisioned. It's unfortunate. It was meant to be half working studio, half theme park, and the studio part died. And so at that point you had to try to figure out how you were expanding it and how it worked as a layout. And it didn't. And so you have this big dead corner, and the answer is, well, yeah, if you put an e-ticket in the back corner, people will go back there. The problem is when your collateral damage is something that is really historically significant to your company.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Now, obviously, the other side, the animation courtyard was the easy answer. I don't know if Mermaid screwed it up or what happened, but the easy answer was the Monsters, Inc. factory goes where Launch Bay is, and that's where you put your Monsters, Inc. stuff. And if you want to still have Mermaid there, you just hide the facade with Monsters, Inc. facades. It was doable. But for some reason, they said no. Now, that may mean that after Monsters, Inc., the next plot they have in mind is that animation courtyard, which I will tell you again, its days are probably numbered. That whole area screams Disney MGM Studios. It screams working studio. It has no real theme to it. It's a bunch of sound stages, essentially. So if I'm trying to make a park where you go and live your adventures and you enter these movie worlds, animation courtyard ain't making it.
I think it's puzzling to a lot of people.
Yeah.
This void that's over there. There's no reason to go over there unless you got little kids. There's no reason to go over there.
Well, Mermaid will hopefully be the reason that people go over there, but you're still going to have a big, stupid, mostly empty building in the back, which I do think is next. I think Monsters, Inc. will open and we'll already be talking about whatever the hell is going to go there.
Maybe that's our Coco location.
It's an animated movie. I mean, I think there's better places, but
I mean, we don't have a lot of space.
It certainly beats the Speedway.
Yeah.
I don't know, but something has to. But either way, no matter what's going to happen is that villain show is not going to last forever. And then you have that big box there. And then I think it is the responsibility of the Walt Disney Company to put Muppet Vision in that box. I think it goes there.
But do you think the audience voted with their feet and just said, "Yeah, we're done with Muppet Vision"? Like it has been popular.
The problem is, if you look at Disneyland management, that has never mattered. It never mattered. If the Enchanted Tiki Room has a couple days where they don't do great numbers. No one comes looking to close Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room.
Well, there's not
Great
much you can
moments
fit
of
in
Mr.
there.
Lincoln. What about Lincoln?
Yeah.
Like, they talked about replacing Lincoln a bunch of times, and people rioted, and they went back on it.
Well, now they're going to have Walt in there.
Yeah, but he's going to switch off with Lincoln, which is fine.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
that's
gonna tag
fine.
in and tag out.
Lincoln is not, it's not a museum piece in that it has to be the same thing for all of time, but it has to continue to exist. And it doesn't matter that 4 people are in that theater. It is a piece of your company's legacy. And sometimes there might be a little bit of real estate that you just got to offer up to that. A little piece of real estate that is dedicated to things that are historically significant to who you are as a company. Sometimes you need to stop crunching numbers. Every once in a while, you need to understand that the numbers don't always speak the truth. And in the case of something like this, where your audience has told you, like, hey, and look, we're going to have this conversation. Do we think for a second that the Liberty Square Riverboat or Tom Sawyer Island draw more guests than Muppet Vision? Muppet Vision absolutely puts more butts in seats than those two things combined in a day. And those two things are at the most visited park in the world, supposedly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that someone smarter than me has done analysis of that data, right, and said, look, we don't think that it will hurt attendance at Hollywood Studios if we get rid of Muppet Vision 3D.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
I'm sure they think they have all the answers, and I'm sure regular guests surveyed are like, it was fine. You know, I'm sure there's a bit of that. But sometimes you have to care. At some point, Walt Disney World needs to show some level of care for the people that repeatedly give them money. And instead, they consistently show disrespect for the people that constantly give them money. And look, if we have that battle, like, I'm okay with Muppets staying and the rivers going. I'm all right with that. I can live with that. You know, I can understand that the Rivers of America is a giant mega plot of land in the busiest park in the world, as opposed to Muppet Vision, which is a tiny theater that's not even getting given to anything else. It's going to be turned into another theater just because Monsters, Inc. is nearby.
Yeah, although I think with Muppet Vision, the sacred part of that is just film, right?
No.
The theater itself, I have good memories of being in there. But
you mean the building, yeah.
The building itself is not what connected people to Jim Henson.
But you do need all the in-theater effects and figures.
You do, but half of those didn't work by
they work right
a couple of years ago anyway. I just think it can easily almost, I hate to use this term, but like it can almost be a pop-up. They can almost put it anywhere, right? They could.
It'll cost some money.
Yeah, it costs some money, but I think they could put it almost anywhere they wanted to.
They
could certainly put it in. I mean, it's not it doesn't make sense to Epcot, but Epcot certainly has a theater that has been showing Pixar shorts and all kinds of stuff that isn't connected to Epcot either.
Though that's 3 shorts you could watch at home.
Yeah,
get to live.
Yeah,
but Muppet Vision doesn't.
Give that theater to the Muppets.
That's so silly. What's going on?
Moving to Epcot, there. I'm fine with that.
At this point, I've seen people pitch things that make no sense, and at this point, I'm like, whatever, just do it. Whatever saves Muppets, just do it.
Yeah. Even if we got it seasonally, in one of some theater somewhere on property, you get the Muppets seasonally.
But that's what they tried to do at DCA, and eventually it got to the point where they just left it buried under all the props and everything in that theater.
Yeah.
It was meant to temporarily. It started by temporarily going away from movie previews. Tron, I think, the first one. Then they put in the Frozen thing, and they're like, "Oh, Muppets will come back." The Frozen sing along, and it didn't. They just buried it, but it was all still there. It was all underneath. All of that. I think most of it is still there, except for I think the Swedish Chef is the thing that that whole section got ripped out, if I'm correct, and the rest is still there, though.
Obviously, if you want to do what I consider to be a lazy option of doing the Electric Mayhem taking over the Rock and Roller Coaster, the villain that Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy building could potentially be a Muppet Vision location.
Yeah.
You have the Muppets right there. You have
it's a new area for them.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's no great solutions. I don't think anybody cares about losing Pizza Rizzo.
People do. People lined up for the pin today. I haven't seen lines for limited edition pins outside of like a park anniversary or a ride grand opening in years.
But that is not due to people loving Pizza Rizzo. That's due to people understanding there will be some scarcity because they're getting rid of it.
No,
it's
these
the same thing.
people
Remember
love
when all the
Pizza
people
Rizzo.
remember when all the people scooped up all that Splash Mountain merchandise as soon as they announced it was
these
closing?
People love Pizza Rizzo. I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's such an unremarkable venue. That project, I think we were so excited as the company that announced that project. I was super excited. I was like, oh my God, when they told me it's going to be a Muppet restaurant, I got to run that post and people watching how excited people like to post there were very seldom rumors of new attractions or restaurants or whatever that we posted where people were positive, right? Very seldom.
Yeah.
Saying that was going to become a Muppet restaurant, there was not a comment that wasn't positive. But I think we still will have a Muppet restaurant. I think we expected so much more of it. I remember it opened and I walked around and I go, I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't something's missing here. Like it's a bunch of reused props from Streets of America. Like, yeah, the party room was funny. I like that. And the
New Jersey prom room.
Yeah, and the little bulletin boards are great. But like in all, I was like, I don't know. I expected there to be video or something with the Muppets. I expected there to be.
Don't you feel the same way with Regal Eagle? Like, it's a Muppets restaurant, but it certainly doesn't evoke the Muppets.
Feel the same way,
unless you really walk around and look for it.
Yeah,
but at least we still have a Muppet restaurant.
I mean, at least Regal Eagle is more edible than Liberty Inn ever was. So.
Yeah, and it's more edible than Pizza Rizzo.
Yeah. In its defense. But yeah, no, I think we expected more because it's the Muppets. We expected it to be zany and off the wall and kind of crazy. And then you went in both of those and you're like, it's like, oh, okay. And then in the case of Pizza Rizzo, the food didn't get better. It stayed ostensibly as bad as ever. I just don't understand the love for it. The billboard's great. Don't get me wrong. I love the billboard. That's the rat, that whole bit of the It's Rat Pizza.
Yeah.
One of the best signs in Disney park history. There is no doubt. There is no argument there. But as far as a total venue, in a lot of ways missed the mark. It just wasn't. It wasn't. And I'm sure they didn't have a huge budget. I'm sure it was, we're opening a Toy Story Land. This has to go. Pizza Planet has to go. What are we going to do? And it was, okay, well, here's the budget. And what can we do within that budget? And a lot of that budget went to the patio upstairs, which wasn't there.
Which is closed half the time.
Yeah, right? Look, I'm sure they're just going to reskin that for Monstropolis. There's no way they're just going to.
Actually, it's probably closed more than half the time.
It's closed almost all the time.
Yeah.
Look, I'm sure that budget will, what the money they spent to fix that venue will definitely be appreciated for the Monsters, Inc. area. But
I just don't. There's nothing about Monsters, Inc. that I find as endearing as the Muppets. And maybe it's because I'm old. They're just, I don't dislike Monsters, Inc. It's just not, it doesn't have the same sort of endurance.
I love Monsters, Inc. That is my favorite Pixar film other than Cars. I love Monsters, Inc. and I've waited. First time I went to Japan, one of the first things I wanted to do, it might have been the second ride I did because long story short, Small World had to be my first ride at every park. But right after that, I think we went to Monsters, Inc. because I was dying to see that because I was like, I can't believe someone built like a completely new Monsters, Inc. like e-ticket and get it going in there. And I'm like, this is amazing. I love this. This is fantastic. We should have this in America. And it was amazing. And then when I heard that they were building the Monsters, Inc. coaster, when I was told it was somewhere else, but nonetheless, I was super excited because finally, Monsters Inc. going to get a big e-ticket at the American parks, and then we find out where it's going, and I'm like, now they've killed my excitement.
It doesn't even sound like an e-ticket now.
It's kind of not. It's like it's a little over a minute. It's kind of a family coaster. People will love it. It'll be like Mine Train. People will love it. It'll be cool, but it's not. It's going to be the same reaction Donkey Kong got where people were so excited about Donkey Kong, myself included, so excited. And then people got on it and it's a minute long and there's like one scene and everyone goes, oh, I thought that was going to be more. And then same with Tron with all of them. People come on and they're like, oh, it was short. I don't like that. And that's what I think is going to happen with Monsters, Inc., where it's going to be super short and other Other than the tourists, we're all going to be like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think that door coaster idea has been kicked around for so long that they just felt like they had to do it.
Yeah.
And for that reason, it almost lacks imagination, right? It's like, oh, well, people have been talking about this for 2 generations.
But it needs to happen. Yeah. It should be a thing that exists. Would it have been nicer if it got a bigger budget and a bigger location? Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been nice. But I think it's a footprint where they realize, like, down the road it's not going to stay exclusive to Hollywood studios. There's no way. I think that's going to go other places. I think, while they're going to lose their Monsters, Inc. ride in California, I would be shocked if they don't get something new down the road, and it's that. I think it's an easy thing to replicate more places. It's probably not wildly expensive, but it offers a good financial return because it's, it's a coaster that the whole family can go on, but it's super thrilling because it's suspended.
I don't know why I just don't connect with it. I think part of it is that it's been around for so long, and now they're like, oh, here you go. You're going to get a Monsters, Inc. land 15 years after we should have given you one.
Yeah, that's the stall time is bad. And that's kind of, I feel a bit about some of the stuff in Epic too, where it just feels like How to Train Your Dragon just feels like, well, yeah, we should have got that a long time ago. Super Nintendo World in America, like the full-blown one. It's like, yeah, you guys talked about that over 10 years ago. Like, why? And Frozen not getting its first fully themed land until November of 2023 is nuts. Yeah. Like, that's nuts that took that long.
Yeah, and even Cars, like, at this point,
yeah, it's
like
bad. I love Cars, and I think it's timeless. I think it'll do well, but
I love Cars. It's a timeless franchise. It's really, I love the characters. I love the aesthetic. I love the ride in California. You go to DCA, and I mean, the first time you walk through there, it's jaw dropping.
Yeah,
and there is something to be said for, like, I like this being a destination where you want to ride, you want to ride in the cars and do this, like you go to Disneyland. But I also want kids to be able to, that maybe it's not in the cars for them to go out there, to be able to experience something. But I'm not exactly clear on how this connects to Cars. They're like off-road vehicles, and I don't know. It seems a little less ambitious than creating Cars Land.
It is. I would have preferred Cars Land, but I have to, practice what I preach, which is I've yelled a lot about having uniqueness between resorts and not just replicating things. And so I love the fact that it's like, oh, we're going to do another Cars area, but it won't be the Cars area that we built in California Adventure.
Yeah.
We're going to do more Marvel attractions, but they're not going to be the same thing done 3 or 4 times.
Something also I feel like Cars Land belongs in California.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
Maybe the car culture
Route 66.
and
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, obviously Route 66 goes through half of the country, but the California, it just makes a lot of sense there, and it really has this great feel to it that is hard to describe unless you've been there. I don't feel anything for any car stuff going in here at Disney World. I don't know why, because I love cars. And look, my favorite attraction is probably Radiator Springs Racers. I don't know how I feel about all this, but
is it what I would have done? No, it's not what I would have done. Am I upset about it? Not really, because again, like, I don't ride the riverboat. I don't go to Tom Sawyer Island. They're pretty, but how do you have the busiest park in the world with that much acreage that's just dead acreage in a park that's that crowded? We can't sit here for years and years and go, yeah, well, the parks are bad because they haven't expanded them. And then the moment they're going to expand them, we all are like, no, you can't. But there has to be more to do. And I know people are like, well, you're replacing 2 attractions with 2 attractions. But you're not, though, because no one's doing those 2 attractions. They're not drawing guests. They're low satisfaction. They don't operate all day. They have limited operating hours. And you need more foot space in that park. People need to be able to get away from the 3 o'clock parade on that side of the park.
And also in California, it's different because the Rivers of America there and the Riverboat are like the Mark Twain, like they're like characters. They're part of, they're like a character in the park
Walt's.
In and of themselves.
They're his.
Yeah. And they are, I mean, it's used in Fantasmic and it's, it's a really important part of the park, and I think it's a beautiful part of the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
I'm sad to see it go. I like that, but I understand the reasons. I don't like the idea of cars being right there. I don't know. Something about it. Something about standing in line for the Haunted Mansion and the roar of cars coming over the wall.
Well, hopefully they block it pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, this could be a whole different conversation if it's not done right. But I hope it's at least again, we can argue all day about the premise, but I just want it to be done right. No matter what they end up doing, it needs to be done correctly. So we'll see how it turns out.
Oh boy. I'm worried. I'm worried about it all.
I'm not worried. I'm just going to go to Japan.
Yeah.
Where the thing I love still exists as intended, and I know that it's pretentious and a really nasty thing to say, but here's the truth of it: is if you don't like what they're doing to Disney World, don't go to it. Go spend your money going somewhere that makes you happy. Then, if it really emotionally affects you in that way, go places where it makes you happy. I will tell you, every couple of months, I like to go to Japan because it's a good reminder of why I love themed entertainment, why I love Disney parks specifically. It's a good reminder. Don't get me wrong. There are brief moments at the U.S. parks where I'm like, oh yeah, I love this. Those moments are somewhat fleeting because it's morphed into something else, like the mixtape thing. It's not really what I fell in love with. And then you go sometimes, even Paris and Hong Kong, I think I go to those places and you have these moments where I'm like, yeah, this is what I fell in love with. This is what I love about it. It's still more pure. It's more maintained. It's still more of what I love. And it's also a good excuse for you to go out and see more of the world, which there is, a whole world out there. Obviously, there's a whole world beyond the 6 places I regularly go. Which I'm trying to go see more of those places as well as I get older. But yeah, I think as a Disney fan, you do yourself, and as a theme park fan, if you're watching this and you're like one of the gung-ho Universal people, I know you hate me and you're at odds with me, but I think the thing you need to hear is that there's more out there. And I think you should see more of the themed entertainment world before you go and decide that Epic Universe is the greatest thing ever. Because I will tell you, there are things out there that are not Disney or Universal at this point that are fantastic and are leaps and bounds beyond what both Disney and Universal are doing, for that matter. So, what's good gravy? No, not good gravy.
Good gravy. Yeah, go right. Good gravy.
Good gravy at Holiday World is not one of those things. But I do appreciate the existence of good gravy. And I will go on it someday with Rosanna.
and as you know, if you watched our videos before, my travel vlogs, Silver Dollar City is building a resort. They're building hotels.
Travel vlogs. Wasn't there one? Was it one episode?
No, I did like 4 segments, right? I made like 4 different videos. I don't know.
Up somewhere.
I don't know. Someone told me they want me to do that more, and I'm like, I don't know. That required a lot of effort.
Vlogging is a lot of work.
Because I had to edit it, and I don't know how to edit. So, yeah.
Like, I'm still churning through the Treasure, and then I still got to do Hilton Head. And then the whole Hong Kong series still. And there's even Japan vlogs. The visit to Sanrio, the Sanrio theme park, Hello Kitty, is still not out. Like, I got to get to that at some point, too. That's a
Can you explain something to me about Hello Kitty? I know we're, like, running super long on time.
Well, the good thing is this is a show without a time limit.
Someone told me that Hello Kitty is not a cat. It's a girl.
You this. It's a girl in a cat costume.
In a cat costume.
Yet the other characters are animals. Don't ask.
Japan is wild, man.
Don't ask for it to make sense. Just let it be the weird thing it is. Let it be the weird, wacky thing. What do you want? Hello Kitty Island Adventure? What's that?
Is that a video game, Katie?
Oh.
Katie wants Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
I want Hello Kitty
house,
Islands of Adventure.
All we want is... all I'm hearing about in my house is Cinderella merchandise.
Yeah, because you're very unlucky. It's an anniversary.
I live with Cinderella herself.
No. There's so much Cinderella merchandise.
No, but now that we found out that Casetify is doing a collab, now I have to buy $9 billion worth of laptop sleeves, iPad covers, phone covers. I don't know what.
Oh,
all.
my brother, Casetify.
I've tried telling her that some of it's not going to work for
Some of it will not work.
Yeah.
For
and she wants to work anyway.
I think I'm also
Honestly.
in trouble this year because when they make a live action Disney movie, they make there's a new influx of animated merchandise,
Yeah.
and Rosanna's favorite is Snow White.
Oh,
And so
God.
there's also, I've seen some stuff hit already. There's a bunch of new animated Snow White merchandise too. They're going to get us, Eric. They're going to get us this year.
Well, they're getting me go because I lost some relatives.
But you know who's really going to get my money? That would be the Tokyo Disney Resort, because they're bringing back Donald's Quacky Duck City.
Quacky Duck.
Is
Yeah.
it Quacky Duck City?
It's still Quacky Duck
Are
City.
you getting some guac guac sticks?
The Guagua.
Guagua?
They're not called that on the website this year. I don't know if they decided to change the name. I don't know. But I'm excited. I
But
don't
Nana
think
told me-
we've talked about this, but I am going in April.
In Japanese, the noise a duck makes is guagua.
It's Guagua, yeah.
And the noise a tiger makes is gao.
That I didn't know.
Gao.
Yeah, okay.
Or a lion. A lion says gao.
Oh.
Oh, well.
Owl's different.
If you've made it this far down the journey with us, thank you for hanging out. Please, I never ask people to like and subscribe at an appropriate time. So like and subscribe. I'm told it helps with algorithms and stuff. That's what every YouTuber says. It really helps.
It does.
It really helps. YouTube won't tell us why it helps or how much it helps, but we know it helps. So please click that like button and subscribe. Have your friends subscribe. Listen to us on Apple and wherever else you get your podcasts. If you're in the car, you don't have time to watch on YouTube.
brother Spotify.
My brother, Spotify. And we'd like to thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on the WDW News Today podcast.
See you real soon.